Two stunning women were seated on the restaurant's terrace, turning heads as men passed by, but they were too engrossed in their conversation to notice. "How long has it been?" Laura asked her tall, dark-haired friend. "It feels like forever since we last met." The blonde, a few years younger, replied, "I know, Laura. I've been buried under grad school work and family stuff. I barely had time for anything else. How's business school treating you? You must be nearing the finish line for that MBA." "Yeah, I'm almost there," Laura said. "Spring break is coming up next week, and then just a few more weeks until graduation. I've already submitted my thesis, so that's one less thing to worry about. Plus, it looks like I'll be skipping all my exams. Smooth sailing ahead." "That sounds great, Laura. Thanks. Have you secured a job yet?" "Not yet. I'm considering taking a little break after the chaos of the past 2 years. I want to relax a bit before jumping into the job market, but enough about me. What about you? Is there anyone special in your life?" "I'm doing okay," she said. "Still looking for Mr. Right." The blonde gave her friend a critical look. "With your looks, you could be dating every night if you wanted." Laura smirked. "Believe me, the single life isn't as glamorous as it seems these days. Waiting through endless dates just to find one decent guy gets tiring quickly. I envy you being happily married to a great guy like Michael. How's he doing, by the way?" "He's doing fine, I suppose." The blonde hesitated. "Wait, did I detect a hint of discontent? What's up, Laura? Things not as perfect as they seem?" The blonde shook her head. "It's not exactly trouble, but Michael's been swamped with work lately. We barely have time for each other, and when we do, our budget for fun is tighter than ever. Well, he's working hard to build a future for both of you, and grad school isn't cheap. I understand and appreciate that. But sometimes I miss the carefree days of school. Everyone's talking about parties and bar outings, and here I am, stuck at home watching TV reruns." Her dark-haired friend gave her a knowing look. "Is there someone at school you're eager to hang out with?" Laura chuckled. "You always see right through me." Leaning in to speak quietly, she confessed, "There's this freshman, Brian. He's really sweet," she said, blushing. "And he definitely seems interested in me. He's always complimenting how good I look and how well I'm doing in school whenever we're together." Gary shook her head. "I don't think Michael would be too thrilled about this." "It's just harmless flirting," Laura said quickly. "But you're right. Michael wouldn't approve. That's why I'm keeping it from him." She shifted uneasily. "But I miss the freedom of my single days. Meeting new guys was so exhilarating. I really miss it." "Be careful," Gary warned. "You've got a great husband. Don't risk losing him. Michael won't take kindly to any fooling around. And if he ever found out, there'd be plenty of women ready to comfort him." "I know," Laura said. "I want to be with him for life, start a family. I just wanted a little fun before things get too serious." Lowering her voice, she leaned in again. "Speaking of Brian, he invited me to Florida with him for spring break. If I could be sure Michael wouldn't find out, I'd consider it." She laughed off the idea. "But it's just a fantasy. It could never happen." Jerry sat down, considering Laura for a moment. Finally, she nodded as if formulating a plan. "Don't be so sure. I think I might have a way you could make it work." Laura sighed, a mix of disbelief and curiosity in her eyes. "Are you serious? You'd actually risk your marriage for a fling?" "If I were certain Michael wouldn't find out, maybe," Jerry said. "But you're probably just teasing me, Gary. There's no way I could pull this off." "Actually, it's quite simple," Jerry said, starting to outline her plan with her fingers. "First, create a new Gmail account with a fake name like Good Friend. Then use it to send Michael an anonymous message warning him about a supposed affair." "Wait, do I admit to having an affair? This sounds crazy. Why would I do that?" Jerry remained calm. "You wouldn't confess to an affair. Instead, you'd suggest that Laura is cheating with someone Michael doesn't know and can't easily verify." "And what's the point of that?" Laura asked. "It'll just make Michael suspicious of me." "Exactly," Jerry said. "But when he can't find this mystery person, he'll have to confront you, demanding answers." "But I don't want him to doubt me." "No, you don't. So when he confronts you, you act outraged, accusing him of not trusting you. You'll be so upset that you'll want to break from the marriage. Doesn't your mom live in Florida?" Laura was surprised by the sudden suggestion. "Yes, why?" "Oh, I see," Jerry said. "You tell Michael that you're going to Florida to sort things out with your mom. While he's back here, desperately searching for the phantom lover, you'll be in Florida with Brian, having your own little escapade. How do I explain this to my mom? Jerry rolled her eyes. You don't need to explain anything. In fact, you don't even have to see her while you're there. But what if Michael calls her? Tell him not to, Jerry advised. Make it clear you need space to sort things out. Warn him not to contact you or your mom while you're away. Let him know that if he does, you might not come back. Laura considered her friend's plan. Then her face lit up with realization. You know, Gary, I think this could work. But what about when I return? That's easy, Jerry said. By the time you get back, Michael will be missing you terribly. And since he won't be able to find the so-called mystery man, he'll realize it was all a ruse. He'll feel guilty and beg for your forgiveness. You'll forgive him, and everything will go back to normal. You'll have a bit of fun, and you and Michael will come out stronger than ever, Gary said confidently. What about the guy I'm supposedly seeing? Maybe I should just invent a name for him. You could do that, Gary agreed, but it'll be more believable if the guy is real. Pick someone completely off limits, an old guy, someone from far away, or even someone who's deceased. That way, if Michael tries to track him down, he'll come up empty. Hey, I think I've got an idea, Laura said, her eyes lighting up. There was this creepy professor from my first year of grad school. I haven't seen him around since then. How does that sound? Perfect, Gary said with a grin. Laura reached out and squeezed her friend's hand. You're amazing, Gary. I'm so excited. I really think this is going to work. She hugged herself, trembling with anticipation. I can't wait to tell Brian. Back at his office, Michael sank into his old swivel chair, rubbing his forehead in frustration. Anxiety was creeping in. If those parts don't arrive soon, we're going to miss the prototype deadline. After the foreman left, Michael started thinking about backup plans. His email pinged, and he eagerly checked it, hoping for some good news. Instead, he almost deleted the email when he saw the subject line about his wife. But curiosity got the better of him, and he opened it. I'm sorry to inform you, but Laura is involved with Professor Hayes. Thought you should know. What in the world? Michael muttered, stunned. He read the message again, trying to make sense of it. This can't be right. Laura wouldn't do this. Someone must be trying to cause trouble. But who and why? He almost deleted the message but hesitated. I can't just ignore this. It could be a mistake, but I need to find out. Frustrated, he hit reply and typed, Who are you? Why make such an accusation? What evidence do you have? He sent the message, staring at the screen in irritation. This isn't getting me anywhere. No way to trace this person or predict when they'll respond. I need to learn more about this Hayes. He searched the university's website, but found no mention of the professor. Feeling increasingly frustrated, he expanded his search to nearby schools but came up with nothing. This is driving me crazy, he said aloud. Did someone just make up a name? I found 2 females with that name, none of whom are local. This has to be a prank or an attempt to mess with me. Yet I can't bring myself to delete the email. Doubt is creeping in. What if she's actually cheating? I didn't see any signs, but I've been so swamped with work lately that I barely spend time with her. Maybe she's upset because I've been neglecting her. I remember turning down her invitations for fun sometimes. But come on, I'm working nearly 70 hours a week for us. Doesn't she get that? Doesn't she see it's all for our future? We can't afford luxuries. Her tuition is skyrocketing, and I'm investing heavily in the business. Yet, maybe I have been neglecting her. Feeling a pang of guilt, he checked his calendar and saw no recent plans with Laura. Damn, he muttered. But then anger flared. Even if I haven't given Laura everything she wanted, that doesn't justify cheating. We talked about making sacrifices for the business. She agreed at the time, so she shouldn't be complaining now. The foreman's arrival interrupted his thoughts. Hey, Michael, great news. The parts we needed just came in. Thank goodness, Michael said with relief. All right, let's get these unpacked and to the workshop ASAP. After the foreman left, Michael took a deep breath. Well, at least one problem is solved, he smirked. Guess I can focus more on my wife now. He continued his fruitless search online, finally leaning back in his chair, deep in thought. If Laura is having an affair, it has to be someone from the university. Maybe my informant got the name wrong, or maybe the university just doesn't list him. I'll call HR. When the secretary answered, he asked about Professor Hayes. Which department is he in? I think it's the business school, but I'm not sure. After a brief pause, she replied, "Sorry, there's no Hayes in the business school." "Other departments?" Another sigh. "Please hold." The wait seemed endless. When she returned, her tone was curt. "There's no Professor Hayes here." A thought crossed his mind. Maybe he left a year or two ago. "I can only confirm current staff," she said. "University policy." "Anything else?" "No, you tried," he said, trying to keep his frustration in check. He attempted to contact the business school dean but made no progress. By now, his head was pounding. "I need a drink," he muttered as he ended the call. Next, he dialed Gary. "Hey, can we meet at Macy's after work? I need some advice." "No, can't talk about it now." "Okay, see you at 6. At Macy's, Michael found Gary at a quiet table with wine and beer. He gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Thanks for the beer and, more importantly, for coming." As they settled in, Gary studied him closely. "All right, Michael, what's going on? Business trouble?" Michael hesitated, unsure where to begin. "Do you know a Professor Hayes?" Gary shook her head. "Hayes? Never heard of him." He sighed and handed her a printout of the email. "I received this today," he said. She quickly scanned it, sighed, and read it again. "Poor Michael," she said sympathetically. "No wonder you didn't want to discuss this over the phone." "What do you think?" Michael asked, his voice strained. "I'm torn," Jerry admitted. "I can't believe it's true, but I can't ignore it either. I spent the day searching for this Hayes at the university and hit a dead end. I'm at a loss. I can't afford a detective, and I don't have time for sleuthing. That's why I turned to you. You've been a loyal friend to both Laura and me. What's your take?" Jerry took another sip of wine and then gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. "So, essentially, you want to know if I think she's having an affair." "I can't give you a definite answer," Gary said thoughtfully. "On one hand, I haven't noticed anything that would suggest Laura is unfaithful. On the other hand, I haven't spent much time with her lately." Michael's annoyance was evident, and Gary hurried to continue. "You know, some people thrive on stirring up trouble, or maybe you have business rivals who want to distract you. There could be other possibilities I haven't considered. What's clear is that you can't just ignore this and hope it goes away. I know how much you value marital fidelity, and any hint of trouble in your marriage will eat away at you. If you leave this unaddressed, doubt will erode your relationship with Laura just as surely as infidelity would." "I understand your dilemma, Gary," Michael said. "But what's the solution?" "I think you should show this to Laura. She deserves to know she's been accused of cheating and should have the opportunity to explain herself. After all, Michael, if someone accused you, wouldn't you want to know?" Michael sat silently for a moment before nodding. "You're right. Keeping this from Laura will only harm our relationship. It could drive us apart just as effectively as if she had actually been unfaithful." He rose and hugged Gary. "Thanks for helping me work through this, Gary. I don't know what I'd do without you. You both mean the world to me." "If there's anything I can do, just let me know," Gary said warmly. Michael nodded gratefully and headed for the door. As he arrived home, Laura was already there, waiting. "Where have you been, Michael? I tried calling you, but you didn't answer," she asked, concern lacing her voice. Ignoring her question, Michael took her hand and guided her to the couch, sitting beside her. "I need to show you something, Laura. Something that's really confusing me." Laura sat down, looking anxious as Michael handed her the printout. "I received this email today. Can you make sense of it?" She quickly read through it, and to his shock, she stood up, her face flushed with anger. "Do you think I'm cheating on you? I can't believe this. You get one anonymous accusation and suddenly I'm being accused of infidelity." No, darling, I'm not blaming you," Michael tried to explain. "If you're not blaming me, then why show me this nonsense?" Laura snapped. She crumpled the printout and threw it at him. "You might as well stab me in the heart. It's deeply hurtful that you'd trust someone too cowardly to even sign their name over me, your wife." She grabbed her bag and headed toward the door. "I can't even face you right now. I'm leaving, and I don't know when I'll be back." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Michael sank back into the couch, feeling more distressed than ever. "Oh, damn, I didn't see this coming. Now things are even worse," he moaned, burying his face in his hands. Sitting there, Michael's initial thoughts were defensive. Why was she so upset? I didn't even accuse her of cheating. I just showed her what someone else claimed. But then he realized, if Laura had shown me that note, I probably would have lost it too. But what can I do, he wondered. Pretend everything is okay? Jerry was right. I can't just dismiss the letter. It wouldn't be fair to Laura or to me. Even though he spent the rest of the night mulling over the issue, he remained no closer to deciding what to do. He knew he and Laura needed to talk, but he couldn't even figure out what to say. All he knew was that he wanted to bring his wife home and try to repair their relationship. Emotionally drained, Michael resolved to stay awake until Laura returned. However, after another hour of waiting, exhaustion finally overcame him, and he fell asleep on the sofa. Sometime past midnight, the sound of the door opening jolted him awake. As he stood up, Laura entered the living room, a stern look on her face, her hands on her hips. "Laura, we really need—" She cut him off sharply. "I don't want to talk about this now," she said, her tone leaving no room for discussion. "You can sleep on the couch tonight, and we'll discuss this in the morning." Without waiting for a response, she turned and marched down the hallway to their bedroom. The sound of the door slamming shut made Michael groan as he settled back on the couch, hoping to fall asleep again. It took a while. Michael usually woke early for work, but he felt compelled to wait until Laura appeared so they could talk. Brewing coffee, he sat at his laptop, skimming the news. Nearly 8 o'clock, Laura entered the kitchen, dragging a suitcase behind her. Michael was stunned. "Where are you going, Laura? I thought we were—" She raised her hand to stop him. "This is a shock, Michael. This shakes our whole marriage. I need time alone to process. Spring break starts tomorrow, and I'm going to Florida to visit my mom. I'll be gone all week and will return next Monday for classes. During my absence, I don't want to hear from you. No calls to me or my mom. Got it?" Michael nodded, feeling helpless. "I'm serious, Michael," she added. "If you try to reach out, I might not come back." Another nod. "Okay," she said and left, dragging her suitcase to her car. Michael sat for several minutes stunned before dragging himself to shave and change. With a heavy heart, he drove to work. Upon arrival, he found some good news waiting for him. The foreman had efficiently distributed the missing components, and testing proceeded without issue. "At least the business won't crash today," Michael muttered bitterly to himself. "Unlike my marriage." In the afternoon, while working on a spreadsheet, he received a call from Jerry. "I was worried and wanted to check in. How did it go last night with Laura?" "Oh, it's a long, sad story," Michael replied dejectedly. "That doesn't sound too good. Maybe we should meet up again for a drink and talk it over," Jerry suggested. "That would be great. Same place?" Michael agreed. "Okay, see you there," Jerry confirmed. Before heading out, Michael checked his email once more, but there was still nothing from Gudfrin. At the bar, Jerry immediately noticed the dark circles under Michael's eyes. "You look like you didn't get much sleep last night. What happened?" Michael took a long sip from his beer before recounting the fight with Laura and her departure. The next day, Jerry looked at him with a mix of sadness and guilt. "Michael, I feel awful. You took my advice, and now it's all gone wrong." "No, Jerry," Michael said, shaking his head. "I've thought about it a lot, and I believe it was the only option. I didn't expect Laura to react so strongly, but I couldn't just ignore the letter and act like nothing happened. Now I hope she'll calm down, and we can talk when she's back." "You say that well, Michael, but I still feel bad. So what's your plan for the week?" "I'm not sure," Michael admitted. "If Laura and I don't talk, I don't see how we can move forward. Maybe I'll wait a bit and then call her." "No, Michael, that's the last thing you should do," Jerry warned. "She already feels like you don't trust her. If you call after she told you not to, it'll just confirm her suspicions." "Yeah, I get it, but I feel so useless. I don't know how to find out who sent the letter." "While she's away, keep trying to find this Professor Hayes," Jerry suggested. "Maybe he can help fill in some gaps." Over the next few days, Michael tirelessly tried to unravel the mystery behind the letter. Despite his efforts, he had no luck finding Hayes, though he was convinced the professor was tied to the university. Then he had an idea. What if Hayes was an alum, not a current faculty member? Being an alum himself, Michael decided to reach out to the alumni office. When he called and identified himself as a former student, he was quickly transferred to the development department. The person he spoke to took down his information and asked if he wanted to make a donation. Michael declined, explaining that he was looking for Professor Hayes, who might be a former student. Unfortunately, the person couldn't find anyone by that name in their records. Michael suggested that Hayes might not have finished his degree, but the records only included graduates. Frustrated, Michael hung up, worried he had just ensured he'd receive a donation request later. The next day, Michael visited the business school during spring break to search for Hayes. Even though it was break, he asked around, but was eventually asked to leave by the assistant dean. Back at his office, feeling defeated, Michael wondered what to do next. Then his phone rang. It was Dr. Ethan Crawford from the business school faculty, who had heard Michael's earlier inquiry and wanted to help. Dr. Crawford informed him, Hayes used to teach part-time here, but his class was canceled due to low enrollment. He mentioned at the start of this year that he accepted a position at Black Hills State University in South Dakota. Really? Michael asked, surprised. And what else? He also mentioned he recently married his partner Harold, Dr. Crawford added. Harold, Michael repeated. Yes, Harold. So Hayes is definitely not involved with Laura, Dr. Crawford confirmed. Thank you for calling, Dr. Crawford, Michael said gratefully. I still don't understand who sent me that letter, but now I know it was a lie. Can I ask why you reached out to me? I don't mind telling you, Dr. Crawford said, his tone shifting. Years ago, something similar happened to me. My wife left me for someone else, so I understand what you're going through. Fortunately, this time it's just a false alarm. But if it were true, I'd have told you. Thanks, sir. I really appreciate your help, Michael said. That night, Michael called Gary to share the news. I still don't know who's trying to mess up my marriage, but I'm sure now that Laura isn't with Professor Hayes. Can you trust Dr. Crawford? Gary asked. Definitely. I checked him out after our call. He's on the business school faculty and seems well respected. He's probably around 60. I also looked up Hayes on the Black Hills website. He's there too. That's good news, Michael. You must feel relieved. Yeah, I do. But now I'm not sure what to say to Laura when she comes back. It's simple, Gary said. From what you said about your argument, she didn't give you a chance to explain. When she returns, tell her you never doubted her. Mention that you found out about Hayes and located him as soon as you got the letter. But since she reacted strongly, you couldn't tell her right away. If you handle it correctly, she'll apologize to you. I'm not sure, Jerry. Things didn't exactly happen like that, Michael said uncertainly. Gary's voice took on a playful tone. Come on, Michael. Is it really so bad to bend the truth a bit to get what you want? Before leaving town on Sunday, Laura called Gary. Hey, I just wanted to check on Michael before I come home. I'm nervous about what I'll find. You owe me big for helping you while you were wrapped up in your affair. With some luck and my help, you'll reconcile with Michael, and your marriage will be better, Gary assured her. Laura recounted her week, concluding with Michael finding Hayes. If you handle it right, Michael will apologize, you'll apologize, and everything will be normal again. There was a pause on the line. What if I don't want things to go back to normal? Laura's voice trembled as she spoke, her unease palpable. Gary was taken aback. What do you mean? Just last week you were thrilled. Brian makes you laugh, and you're happier than you've been in years. You want to keep seeing him until the semester ends, right? Yes, but I need your help to make that happen, Laura said, desperation evident in her tone. Laura, you're already walking a tightrope by seeing Brian for a week. If you try to maintain this affair and manipulate things further, you're playing with fire. Maybe so, but your scheme worked flawlessly last time. I'm sure you can come up with another plan to keep things going. I really need this. Gary sighed deeply. You're risking everything for a bit of excitement. Michael is a good guy, dedicated and faithful. Men like him don't come around often. Are you truly ready to throw it all away? Laura's laugh was bitter. You always know how to push my buttons. Okay, what's your plan? All right, Gary said slowly. Here's what you need to do. Remember that email account you set up? Of course. You told me to keep it active. Perfect. You need to send another letter, but this time send it to yourself at your regular email address. Okay, but what should the new letter say? Make it similar to the last one, but this time claim that Michael is having an affair with me. What? That's not true, and Michael knows it. How is this supposed to help? It's straightforward. The first letter accused you of cheating. Michael found out you weren't involved with Hayes, but he might still have doubts about your fidelity. After he receives this new letter, he'll be reassured. He knows you didn't cheat with Hayes, and he'll be convinced the good friend is a fraud. This way, you can carry on with almost anything without arousing suspicion. Laura's voice brightened with renewed hope. Jerry, you're a genius. This could really give me the freedom I need for the rest of the semester. There are a couple more things you should do, Gary added. First, make sure Michael talks to me about the new letter. Why? Because I'll support your credibility and cast doubt on this mysterious good friend. Got it, what else? Make sure to log out of both your email accounts after sending the letter. You don't want Michael stumbling upon any incriminating evidence. I've already warned Brian about emails, but that's good advice. Better to be safe. Returning home from work, Michael was shocked to find Laura sobbing. What's wrong, Laura? What happened? He asked, rushing to her side. Oh, Michael, it's happening again, she cried, handing him a copy of the latest letter. Michael's face darkened as he read the accusatory message. Damn it, you know this isn't true, right? Of course, Laura said, trying to compose herself. I know you'd never cheat on me, and even if you did, it wouldn't be with Gary. She's our friend and would never do something like that. Someone's trying to tear us apart, Michael said angrily. I need to find out who's behind this and why. Are you going to tell Jerry about this? Laura asked, her voice trembling. I think I should, Michael said. It wouldn't be fair to her if she's involved and doesn't know the full story. The next morning, when Michael called, Gary answered with his usual cheerfulness. How are you two doing today? Michael's voice was serious. We need to talk, Jerry. There's something new I need to discuss. Can we meet after work? I'm working from home this afternoon. Can you come over? Gary offered. Sure, I'll be there between 6:30 and 7. When Michael arrived at Gary's apartment, her demeanor immediately changed upon seeing his troubled expression. What's going on, Michael? You've got me worried. Michael handed her the new letter. I'm sorry, Jerry, but it seems you're now part of this mess with Laura and me. Gary looked at the letter in shock. This is crazy. I would never cheat on Laura. I hope she knows that. She does, Michael said. She believes you're innocent. Gary shook her head, puzzled. But what does this mean? It means someone is determined to create trouble between Laura and me, Michael said with frustration. I need to get to the bottom of this. First, a warning about the professor, now this. The only explanation I can think of is that I have an enemy, maybe a business rival, but I have no idea who it could be, Michael said with frustration. Anyway, since you're involved now, Laura and I thought you should be informed. I'm glad you did, Michael. It's just, I'm not sure what we can do about this. Unless this person makes a mistake or something obvious happens, involving the police might not help, Gary said, her voice filled with concern. I agree, Michael replied. It's so frustrating. I just want this person to leave us alone. How is Laura handling all of this? Gary asked, her tone softening. She's very upset. She was in tears when I got home, Michael said, his expression pained. I'm not surprised, especially after everything we've been through. With graduation approaching, she's probably on edge. You need to be extra supportive right now. Should we block all emails from this account? Gary suggested. That might be risky, Michael said. If they send anything else, you'll want to know about it. True, Gary agreed. How can I help protect Laura? If you get another letter, I wouldn't tell her immediately. You could monitor her email on your laptop and, if a new letter arrives, forward it to yourself before she sees it. That way, you can keep her in the dark and protect her from more stress. That's a good idea, Michael said, nodding. I'll do that. He stood up and with a grateful smile said, I'm sorry you got pulled into all of this, but I appreciate your support. You mean a lot to me, and I'll do whatever I can to help. Gary returned his smile. No need for apologies. I'm here for you. As Michael left, he paused, embraced Gary, and kissed her cheek. Thank you for being such a great friend. Your support means a lot. Returning home, Michael was surprised to find Laura in much better spirits. The following morning, she was more cheerful than usual and made breakfast for them both. It's a rare treat to see you before I head off to work, Michael remarked with a smile. I just wanted to make sure I told you I love you before you left this morning, Laura said, kissing him warmly. Oh, and by the way, I'll be attending a lecture on campus tonight. A few friends and I are planning to grab a bite afterwards, so I might be home late. Sounds good, Michael said. We've got plenty of leftovers in the fridge, so I'll manage. Have a great time. If we miss each other, I'll probably swing by after class to drop off my things and change, Laura added. See you later. With Laura out for the evening, Michael decided to stay at the office later than usual. Business was picking up, with a large client showing interest in their new product samples. As he thought about the mysterious good friend, he resolved to get to the bottom of the email situation. When he walked into the house, He noticed Laura's laptop on the table. She probably didn't need it for the lecture, he mused. Remembering Gary's suggestion, he decided to check if there were any new emails. Opening the laptop, he found that Laura was logged out of her Gmail account. As he clicked on the Gmail link, a window popped up asking for account selection. He saw Laura's email address but noticed another account listed as Good Friend. Shocked, he tried to open it, but Google asked for a password. Without it, he closed the tab and sank into a chair, trying to piece everything together. Why does she have an email account under that name? He wondered. Gmail doesn't allow duplicate addresses. Laura must have sent those letters. But why accuse herself of an affair? It's a diversion. She wanted me to chase after some professor while she was with someone else. His mind raced back to her trip to Florida. When I confronted her, she said she needed space and was visiting her mother. But did she really? He quickly called his mother-in-law. After some small talk, he asked, Laura and I were thinking of visiting next month. Would that be too soon? Not at all. It's been ages since I saw you. Please come whenever, his mother-in-law replied warmly. Great. We'll be in touch, Michael said, gritting his teeth as he hung up. Laura is so deceitful. Where did she go? Who was she with? He remembered the last letter Laura received. What's the purpose of this letter? It must be another distraction while she's out with her friends. What a despicable, lying woman. Driven by curiosity, Michael decided to investigate what Laura wore when she went out. He hurried to the bedroom and searched through her underwear drawer. He was struggling to remember every detail about Laura's clothing, but a sudden suspicion gripped him. He double-checked a particular item, a garter belt. It was missing. Frustrated, he also found that her favorite bra and underwear were gone. Out for dinner with her friends, huh? He muttered to himself. He replaced everything in the drawer and returned to the kitchen table. So you enjoy sabotage and deception. Well, two can play at this game. When Laura finally got home after midnight, Michael was seething, but pretended to be asleep as she quietly entered the bedroom. He held back from confronting her, even as he heard the shower running, sarcastically thinking, who knew lectures would make someone so sweaty? The next morning, Michael got up before dawn and left for work while Laura was still asleep. By the coffee pot, he left a note. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. I had an early meeting at work and might be late today, so don't wait up. Michael's day was busy, but not with work meetings. At lunch, he ran errands and made purchases to prepare for his next move. He had 2 meetings in the afternoon and later went out for dinner and a movie. When he returned to bed, Laura was already asleep. He tried not to disturb her, but as soon as she woke up, he was ready. I thought you left for work already, Laura said, taking the coffee he handed her. I wanted to see you before I leave. I have a flight to Detroit at noon and will be gone a few days, he said. That's unusual. When will you be back? Laura asked, her eyebrows raising in curiosity. Friday night, maybe Saturday morning if everything goes well, Michael replied. Can you manage while I'm gone? Laura smiled. I'll be fine. I'll keep busy. Good. Just stay away from our good friend while I'm away, Michael said, his voice laced with a hint of sarcasm. Her face fell. That's not funny, Michael. Sorry, you're right. It's not, Michael said, waving as he left for the car. As he drove away, he frowned. She didn't even notice I didn't say I love you. She's probably making plans to meet her lover. I need a diversion to keep her here instead of going to the airport. At lunchtime, Michael left his office and made his way to the off-campus parking lot of the university. Dressed casually in jeans and a sweatshirt, with a cheap backpack slung over his shoulder, he headed towards the graduate business school. He slipped into the reading room of the library unnoticed by the few students present. Once hidden behind the periodicals rack, he pulled out a string of hefty firecrackers, lit the long fuse, and tossed them into a metal disposal container. Calmly, he exited through a nearby door, propped it open with his backpack, and made his way outside. He pulled out the phone he had purchased the day before and dialed campus security. Quick, come over. There's firing at the business school, he said urgently when they answered. I think there might be multiple shooters. It's ongoing. He pointed the phone towards the library and triggered the firecrackers, causing a series of loud explosions. After hanging up, he hurried across campus to his car, dodging blaring sirens and panicked students fleeing in all directions. From a vantage point in his neighborhood, he watched an hour later as Laura's car pulled into their driveway, followed by another vehicle with a man stepping out. In times of danger, there's no place like home, Michael muttered with a bittersweet grin before driving to the motel where he had booked a room. Later that night, he circled his neighborhood to ensure the second car remained parked in his driveway before returning to his motel room to try to sleep. The next morning, when Laura and her lover emerged from the house, they were startled to find Michael leaning against the stranger's car door. "Oh God, Brian, that's my husband," Laura gasped upon recognizing him. "I thought you were in Detroit," she stammered, then quickly recovered. "Dear, things aren't as they seem. Brian just stopped by for a visit." "Laura, every time you speak, it's just lies." "I don't want to hear it anymore," Michael growled. "This isn't a one-time slip-up. You've been seeing him for weeks, and it wasn't accidental. You planned it all. I know you sent that letter as a distraction so you could spend spring break with him. And by the way, your mom's wondering why you haven't visited. I guess you were too preoccupied with this mess," he gestured at Brian, "to bother seeing her." Turning to Laura's lover, Michael snapped several photos with his phone. When Brian realized what was happening, he snarled, clenched his fists, and took a threatening step forward. "Easy now," Michael warned, raising a hand, which made Brian back off. Michael turned to Laura with a smirk. "Seems your boyfriend's more lover than fighter." His tone hardened. "Grab your things from the house and leave. Don't be here when I return. I meant it when I said I never want to see you again." "Michael, please," Laura pleaded, collapsing onto the driveway in tears. Michael ignored her, heading to his car. Laura sat on the driveway, covering her face as she cried. En route to his office, Michael stopped at a dumpster to dispose of his phone and the toy weapon tucked in his pocket. "Glad these things look so real," he said coldly with a grin. Back at his desk, Michael emailed one of the photos he had taken. Surprisingly, he received a call shortly after. "This is Dr. Crawford. Did you just send me a photo?" the voice on the line asked. "Yes, Dr. Crawford. Forgive the intrusion, but do you know the man in the photo? His name might be Brian. Is the woman beside him your wife?" "My ex-wife, to be precise. Lovely woman. I recall her being in one of my classes last year. As for the man, I recognize him. He's Brian Adams, one of my dissertation students." "Brian Adams. Good to know, doctor." "Well, I'm glad to have assisted you, though I'm sorry it's not the outcome you desired." "Thank you, doctor. I appreciate your time and help regardless of the outcome." "Good luck to you, my boy, and keep your spirits up." "Thank you, doctor." 2 months later, Michael sat across from his lawyer, frustration evident on his face. "Any updates from Laura's lawyer? How are the divorce proceedings shaping up?" "Yes, I had a conversation with Rachel Evans yesterday," the lawyer said, tapping his pen on the desk. "Laura has agreed to a no-contest divorce after reviewing the recordings you provided. Rachel managed to persuade her not to risk those recordings in court." Michael's expression softened briefly. "That's good to hear, but what's the catch?" "The catch is Laura's desire for financial compensation," the lawyer explained. "Now that she's accepted the divorce, she's pushing for a significant alimony payment." Michael scowled. "So she cheats on me, gets caught, and now wants me to pay her off? That's beyond unfair. What's she really after?" "The usual would be splitting assets," the lawyer said. "But since you don't have much to split, no home ownership, no pension, and limited savings, her focus is on alimony. She's betting your business, which is already in trouble, will fail, so she's asking for a substantial amount of alimony." Michael shook his head, incredulous. "So she's setting me up to fail. How much is she asking for?" "Considerably more than what we proposed," the lawyer said, sliding a document across the table. Michael's eyes widened as he scanned the figures. "This is ridiculous. She knows I can't afford this. If I'm forced to pay that much, it'll bankrupt my business. What's her endgame?" "Laura isn't open to negotiation," the lawyer said. "So Rachel will present this to Judge Thompson. We'll need to fight it out in court." "I won't give in without a fight," Michael said firmly. "Let's take it to court." "Understood. But remember, Judge Thompson has the final say. You're at his discretion," the lawyer cautioned. A month later, Michael sat anxiously in the courtroom. The arguments had been presented, and now Judge Thompson was deliberating. "What do you think?" Michael whispered to his lawyer. "It's hard to predict. The judge might propose a compromise, or could lean in favor of one side," the lawyer replied. Judge Thompson returned to the bench and signaled for the opposing counsels to approach. "I assume your positions remain unchanged?" the judge asked, his gaze sweeping over the room. The lawyers nodded in agreement. Yes, Your Honor. Very well, Judge Thompson said. Before I make my decision, I'd like to hear from Miss Parker. Laura, looking nervous but composed, approached the stand. Stay calm, Rachel Evans advised in a hushed tone. Address the judge as Your Honor. Michael watched with a growing sense of dread as Laura began her testimony, noting how intently Judge Thompson was listening. I think we're in trouble, he murmured to his lawyer. Judge Thompson reviewed the financial documents before addressing Laura. Miss Parker, the primary dispute is the alimony amount. Your request is significantly higher than Mr. Parker's offer, correct? Yes, Your Honor, Laura confirmed. Can you justify your proposed amount? We believe the amount is fair, given the length of the marriage and my need to establish a new life, Laura explained. Mr. Parker claims his sole income is from a struggling business. Why do you believe he can afford the amount you're requesting? We argue that he's manipulating his financials to appear less profitable, Laura said confidently. His business losses could be adjusted, and he can cover the support we seek. Judge Thompson's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting there's dishonesty in his financial statements? Laura hesitated before responding. Not dishonesty, Your Honor. The earnings can be deferred and investments accelerated, which is within standard accounting practices. He simply chooses to invest heavily in his company. Michael's frustration boiled over. This is just a manipulation tactic. She's trying to pressure me into giving her more, regardless of the truth. Judge Thompson reviewed the documents and then turned back to Laura. Miss Parker, we've focused on Mr. Parker's business investments. However, he has also invested significantly in your education. If you're referring to my MBA, Your Honor, Michael did fund my tuition, but I worked hard to earn my degree. I completed all coursework, exams, and wrote my dissertation. I dedicated myself for the past 2 years, Laura said proudly. And you recently graduated with honors? Yes, Your Honor, Laura confirmed. Judge Thompson nodded. Very well, that's all for now. You may be seated. Laura returned to her lawyer, visibly relieved, while Judge Thompson reviewed the case summary. After considering all evidence, Judge Thompson announced, I'm awarding Mrs. Parker the alimony amount requested. However, given her recent educational achievements, which should qualify her for a lucrative position, I'm limiting the alimony to 6 months. Michael's face fell as he absorbed the news. Only 6 months? He echoed, stunned. That's completely unfair, Laura protested loudly as Judge Thompson struck the gavel. I have decided, and that's final, the judge replied firmly. Next case. Laura's lawyer hurriedly escorted her out of the courtroom, but Laura continued to voice her dissatisfaction until a bailiff intervened to usher her away. As Michael walked out with his lawyer, he felt a sense of relief. So do I only have to pay alimony for 6 months? Seems like it, his lawyer said with a hint of satisfaction. Considering how Laura presented her case, we were worried the judge might side with her more, but it seems he wasn't impressed with her tactics. Not many husbands fare as well in divorce court. Michael raised an eyebrow. Do you think her agreeing to the no contest plea had any effect on the outcome? Probably not, the lawyer replied. The judge's decision was based on the financial details, not the infidelity. But who knows? Maybe the judge took her reluctance to contest into account. Michael glanced back at Laura, who was still arguing with her lawyer, and couldn't help but chuckle. Well, whatever the reason, I'm just glad it's over. At that moment, a hand rested lightly on his shoulder. Michael turned to find an elderly man with a gray beard and a friendly smile. I wanted to introduce myself, the man said. I'm Professor Crawford. Michael shook his hand firmly. Professor, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. Thank you again for your support. What brings you to court today? Professor Crawford smiled warmly. After our discussion, I was curious about the outcome of your case, so I decided to see it through. Plus, it gave me a chance to catch up with an old friend, Judge Thompson. He shook Michael's hand once more. I'm pleased things worked out for you. If you ever need assistance in the future, don't hesitate to ask. Divorced men need to stick together. As the professor left, Michael watched him go, intrigued. Interesting, he muttered, then shook his head. From the corner of his eye, he thought he saw Gary in the crowd, but the figure vanished as he turned to look. Laura took a while before dialing a familiar number. When the call was answered, she hesitated before speaking. Hello? Jerry, it's Laura. Laura, what a surprise, Jerry responded. I haven't heard from you since you moved to Florida. How are you holding up? Honestly, it's been rough, Laura admitted. That's why I'm calling. I need someone to talk to. Of course, Jerry said. Tell me what's going on. Are you working? That's part of the problem, Laura explained. I thought my MBA would open doors. But here, employers value experience more. Most offers I've gotten are just internships. That sounds challenging, Jerry sympathized. So what are you doing now? Well, when the alimony ended, I was desperate, Laura said. I tried admin work, but it was awful. Now I'm in financial advising. I was hoping you might help me analyze my finances. It's a tough industry to break into. There was a brief pause. Laura, I'd like to help, but my finances are stable right now, and I'm confident about the future. I don't think I need assistance. I understand, Laura said, a bit disappointed. I hear that often, but I thought I'd ask anyway. It's tough starting out. I even had to move back in with my mom to save on expenses. You're living with her now? And what about you and Brian? Jerry asked. Don't mention Brian, Laura snapped. We split up shortly after moving here. It was a disaster. He dropped out of school, had his thesis rejected, and became bitter and aggressive. I had to call the police on him. That sounds awful, Jerry said sympathetically. But now you're free to start fresh. You can go out, meet new people, and have some fun. Yeah, but going out costs money, Laura sighed. Gary and I aren't well off, and the reality isn't as glamorous as I thought. There seem to be more creeps than good guys. Changing the subject, Laura asked, What about you, Jerry? Anyone special in your life? My life has taken an exciting turn, Jerry said. I'm getting married next month. Married? That's incredible, Laura exclaimed. Who's the lucky person? You know her, Jerry said with a grin. It's Michael. Michael? My Michael? Laura's voice rose in shock. You're engaged to my Michael? How could you? I already did, Jerry said smoothly. We're having a small ceremony at our new home, and then we're heading to Paris for our honeymoon. A new house and a honeymoon in Paris? Can Michael really afford all that? Laura asked, stunned. Not only has my situation improved, but Michael's has too, Jerry explained. The month you moved to Florida, he landed a major order that turned his business around. His new product is in high demand, and recently, a big manufacturer offered to buy his business for a fortune. The deal closes next week. So yes, our financial future is quite secure. Laura could hardly process the news. I can't believe this. Everything you told me was a lie. You manipulated me from the beginning. Jerry chuckled. I merely provided opportunities. You made your own choices. As for Michael, he had no idea about your affair. You're despicable, Laura shouted. I'm sorry, Laura, but I have plans with Michael tonight, Jerry said. I'll be blocking your number now. Goodbye. As Jerry hung up, he welcomed Michael home with a kiss. Michael mentioned receiving a letter from Laura. Really? Jerry said casually. I almost forgot about her. What did she want? Michael glanced at Jerry, his expression neutral. She claims you orchestrated everything to break us up. Jerry took a look at the letter and laughed. Poor Laura. She should have made her jealousy act more convincing if she wanted it to be taken seriously. A good friend would have signed it. Jerry continued to laugh as Michael shook his head, relieved that the chapter was finally closing.